And we have been talking about 1G and 2G. So in our last class, we talked about 1G, 2G, and 2.5G. And in today's class, we are going to talk about 3G, 4G, and how the things are evolving and where do we stand. And in the next class, as you opted that we'll be having classes in the next week as well. So we'll continue with 5G and there we will end. And then we'll have a discussion on Wi-Fi. So I was looking at the Moodle page, and then I found that today is our 12th class. So by next week, we will complete our 15th class, and then we will have only 5 classes left. So we'll have probably good progress. Okay, and I hope you also have found that CA2 is open for submission. So please submit within 11th March your content assessment 2. Okay, so let's continue our discussion. I will share the PDF which we are talking about. So we talked about 1G and 2G, and we talked about 2G plus. So I will today start with 3G. But just to remind you that how we proceeded, well, in 1G, we had a cellular idea at first. And the cellular idea was like we'll have towers, multiple towers in one city. And those towers will serve that city or some area. Obviously, the 1G was primarily directed towards giving service to a city, not in a countrywide fashion. So the zones were discrete. So it was like you can get a mobile service in New York City, but when you go to the outskirts, there is no coverage. That was the scenario in 1G. But still, in 1G, we needed that only one tower cannot serve a whole city. Probably we should be dividing the city into several smaller areas, which are called cells. And for each cell, we have a tower. And we can use the same frequency sets in every cell again and again, and thereby we can accommodate a large number of subscribers. So that was the lesson we got from 1G. We also got the idea that we should have some wired and wireless combined network. So the towers are connected to a central station via wired networks. On the other hand, wireless networks are between, like wireless links are between the towers and the mobile stations. So that was the idea of 1G, and in 2G it became digital. And in 2G, from 2G onwards, the technology started proliferating into the third world countries, the so-called third world countries, and the number of subscribers boosted a lot. So there were a lot of many companies coming in. There were 2-3 remarkable achievements in 2G. The first thing was like the introduction of SIM card. So we now had 2 different players. One set of players were the mobile phone manufacturers. The other set of players are the telecom operators who are providing the network access, SIM card, towers, etc. The other set of players are like manufacturing the mobile phone devices. And 2G also opened up the possibility of roaming. So that was again another big achievement. And in 2G, as the platform was digital, the possibility of combining many services started. Like with 2G, we had some concept of SMS, short message service. So the short message service started with 2G. But people found that if we can send short messages, probably we can send long messages as well. And that idea flourished in 2.5G, where we could probably send multimedia message services, where we can combine audio clips or video clips along with text. But people were not probably happy with only messages. They wanted full internet access in their mobile phones. So from 2G onwards, actually, the development of browsers and so on for mobile specific applications started. And obviously, there was also on parallel, the operating systems and these things are developing. So there was also development in Android and other technologies, but they were not there like fully flourished until 3G came, where the smartphone came. In 2G phones, or 2.5G phones, we were having gradually data rate increase, and we could probably access more and more websites. Like earlier, it was restricted to the telecom service provider websites. Like you can only download ringtones, or you can listen to, or you can probably get information about a cricket match score or something. That was in 2G. 2.5G, we had limited browsing capability. The initial browsers like Opera and Opera Mini and all those things were coming up. But when people were like in 2000 start onwards, people wanted more and more data services. So from 3G onwards, people were like only asking for how much data speed we can get from a mobile phone. So that was the major thing that happened in 3G. Now in 3G, and before 3G, the world was something like divided into two groups. One was the GSM group, the other one was the CDMA group. And there was a big tussle between these two groups. The GSM group was backed by the European operators, and they came up with this GSM standard, which was developed by ETSI, which is European Telecommunication Standard Institute. And the whole of Europe, the whole of Africa, they were fully GSM. And most of Asia was also convinced with GSM technology. On the other hand, the US didn't want the European technology. They wanted their own. They didn't want to pay royalty fees and other kind of fees to the Europe. So they developed or they backed CDMA technology. And they didn't only back in their country, like in US or Canada. Canada is something like always following the US footsteps. So they were not only convinced by encompassing the North America, but they also grabbed the Latin America. So the world was like divided into two areas. There are only very few countries who enjoyed both. India is one of them. Australia is one of them. Some part of China also got both kind of services. So at the end of 2.5G or so, there were two big groups who were always like tussling with each other. So there was a need that these two groups merge and they cooperatively develop the next generation thing so that everybody can be benefited. So with this in mind, there was a group called 3GPP, or Third Generation Partnership Project. So this 3GPP or Third Generation Partnership Project was aimed for combining these two groups like GSM and CDMA, and they thought that the next generation, which was third generation, that should be built by combining both these technologies. Now, obviously, it is very hard to like combine the two incompatible technologies. So somebody has to win. So somehow the CDMA-based technology was adopted, but the backward compatibility to 2G was also maintained. So it's not that the 3G phones were not usable with 2G networks. That was maintained, but it was a very complex kind of organizational, administrative, and other kind of task. Also, you have to think that 2G proliferation was kind of like from no phone to mobile phone. But once you have a mobile phone, then the technology advancement becomes sluggish, because people, once they have bought the phones, people already have set up the networks, they are not ready to change their phones or change their networks after say 1 or 2 years or so. So people were reluctant to buy new phones. People were, the telecom operators were reluctant to get new towers and so on. So this problem started from 3G onwards, and this exists still even today. Like if you don't have a TV, for example, in your home, then the demand or probably the desire to get a new TV is immense. But once you have a new TV, then somebody says that, okay, I have got an improved TV. Probably you will think many times before discarding your old TV, which was probably serving your purpose, and buying a new TV. So that's what exactly happening from 3G onwards or worldwide. And to make the matter worse, there were a lot of competition, and the subscriber base, although it is increasing, but the average revenue per users are not increasing that much. That means this sector has not become very profitable after 3G onwards, because the people wanted probably more services at a lesser price. And if you consider the Indian scenario, in Indian scenario, many people probably in rural areas, they are still probably happy with whatever data services they are getting from 3G or probably 3.5G or so. So even they are not ready to take up 4G. So forget about 5G. So the development from 3G to 4G to 5G, although it is happening after every 10 years. So on roughly, it's like after every 10 years, you have a new mobile generation. that is announced, but their adoption and their proliferation is not that fast as it was in case of 2G. And currently we have an amalgamation, like we have a coexistence of many different generations together. We still have in some cases 2.5G networks as well, even in India. Obviously, in other third world countries like Africa and so on, there is obviously the case. And we have 3G some cases, and we have 4G in many metro cities. And soon 5G is going to be launched in 22 cities. So everything is coexisting as of now. So the market is in a convoluted state. Okay, anyway, so let us talk a little bit about 3G. So what 3G was? Well, 3G was mainly CDMA based. So GSM got a backseat as far as technology was coming in, but you will soon find that the CDMA was completely obsolete in 4G, and in 4G CDMA was replaced by OFDM. So it's like for 10 years CDMA reigned, and then it was completely moved away from the technology market. What other things we had? Well, from 3G onwards, the telecom operators and the manufacturers and everybody decided that we will no longer be concerning about the calls or voice calls more, rather we will be fully focusing on data. So they were fully developing that we have different data services, different applications or apps, the operating system, and the network, which was also made packet switched. So you probably remember from our discussion between packet switch and circuit switch networks that packet switch networks are more suitable for transmitting data. So the mobile networks, which were primarily designed for taking up calls, are now primarily designed for transfer of data. So that was again a big paradigm shift. Okay. Now there is also a player called ITU, or International Telecommunication Union. It is something like what the UN does right now. Probably you are all aware of the global conflict that is going on. So the United Nations is trying to pacify the thing. So ITU is actually a wing of UN. Like United Nations has many wings, and ITU is one of them. It is like the telecommunication wing, and it was set up so that the telecommunication organizations all over the world can cooperate, because you see most of the time telecommunication is not contained within a country. Just think for the air traffic control, when you are flying from one continent to other continent, how many air traffic controls need to be cooperating with each other so that the aeroplane can land safely. So in the same way, the ITU was envisioned so that they can probably pacify and probably can help in cooperation between different such organizations. So they came up with some vision like IMT 2000, which was International Mobile Telecommunication, and they not only combined like the GSM and CDMA, but they also combined many other wireless services. For example, there was cordless service, which was also this wireless kind of service. Then there was satellite service. So they tried to make an uniform standard which is applicable to all, and they came up with UMTS, or Universal Mobile Telecommunication System. Well, the UMTS uses a form of CDMA, and it has a higher data rate. So we had something like a data rate of this is probably, you can probably this is important, that is the data rate is something like around 2 Mbps. So the 2 Mbps data rate was quite nice, because if you consider the 2.5G, which was around 115, and then in US also it was around 150 or so, and later on it was around 400, but suddenly from the kbps to the Mbps it was a jump. And if you want to look at the 3G achievements, we can show this table to you. So this is like a comparison, like what data rate can do to your case. Well, if you suppose want to do some basic applications like email or basic web page means it does not have any forms or any advanced graphics, only text. You want to browse that, then the 2G will take around 8 seconds, which is reduced to 0.04 seconds for 3G, and 2G plus it was 0.8 seconds. If you are downloading an audio song, which is around 4 MB of size, then it would take around 48 minutes for a 2G kind of data connection, which reduced to 14 seconds in case of 3G. And a TV quality movie, it was possible to download with 3G, which was probably almost impossible to do it on 2G and so on. Now, this was one of the big achievements of 3G, that is the higher data rate. And then there was another achievement, that is when you have such kind of data rate, then you can realize a lot of other services, because you have to remember that the basic smartphones were coming at that time. They had many different kind of apps, and they also had a GPS kind of system. So once you install the GPS sensor inside your mobile phone, then you can access map or location based applications. So map or location based applications are not only related to Google Maps. Well, like if you want to go somewhere, you want to book a cab, so this Ola or Uber or all these things, these service models, and many others, like the food ordering, like Zomato. So everything, so 3G enabled all these services to realize. So like you have to understand that in 2G, we had this analog to digital transformation. So we could have this audio, video, text, everything that can be handled via mobile phone. Again, on 3G, the big achievement was like you can now have different kind of map and location based services, everything together with the phone. So now you can probably do banking transactions, you can do food ordering, you can probably go for asking a cab. So these are new interesting things coming up. Well, the other one thing was like the multimedia. Multimedia took a new form, and this YouTube and other kind of services came. So those services were also very popular. Gaming industry was booming up, and obviously the social networking, like the Facebook and this other networking services, like social networking services, like they also flourished, because now you have the capability of being anywhere, post it, write it on the social network, and then constantly be in touch. So that started a new social movement altogether. Okay, so after discussing 3G, let's go towards 3G plus. So 3G plus was something like an advancements of 3G. So when this 3G plus was coming, so well, you have to understand that a new generation is something like in every 10 years. But for 10 years, the industry is not sitting idle. So they are constantly improving. So it is very difficult to identify a particular technology with a generation. So it's a continuous evolvement process. See, in 10 years is a lot of time. 10 years is a time to for a company to completely go bankrupt, or then come again and then probably start business and still make it profitable and so on. So 10 years is a lot of time. So 3G plus is somewhere between 2000 and 2010, where we had got different improvements. Well, the first improvements was HSPA, which was high-speed data access, and then evolved form of that. So and then we have this long-term evolution, or LTE. So you can see from the data rates that how it increased. The basic 3G was 2 Mbps, then we have got 14 Mbps, then we have got 42 Mbps, and then finally we have got a great speed of 100 Mbps. 100 Mbps is quite a large data rate, which you can realize with a mobile phone. Like anywhere you can get 100 Mbps. That's a pretty good speed. Now, if you want to relate it with your data access experience in your own mobile phone, then you look at the mobile data symbol, which is being shown in your mobile phone, and probably you have seen that there is either it is showing G or G plus, and then E or E plus, and then probably 3G, and then H plus, 4G, all these signs probably you have seen. So now you probably know that what these signs mean. So G is something like GPRS, which is something like advanced 2G, which is very low data rate, and probably you can almost browse nothing, because today's web pages are so much content heavy. Then with Edge, you probably go to this 2.5G, and then 3G is like UMTS technology, and then the advanced 3G are like this H or H plus, and then obviously you are all going towards LTE, which is actually 4G. So LTE started, they are overlapping with each other. So LTE started within 3G plus, but they were the major constituent block in 4G. The whole thing started being implemented in 2010, and then we also had some other things like WiMAX. which was something like a broader version of Wi-Fi. Okay, so although I'm going to take a entire class on Wi-Fi, but let me tell you that what is happening on the Wi-Fi side, because we are only talking about the cellular side. Well, Wi-Fi, in the Wi-Fi side, the whole thing started from 1995, and by 1999 we have already got these Wi-Fi standards. And from 2000 to 2010, when there was development in this 3G plus, there have been also development in the WLAN or wireless LAN, and they have matured. And in 4G, which is something like it came in around in 2010, they tried to combine this Wi-Fi with the cellular thing altogether. To some extent, they are successful because by 2020, we have got some applications where you can make something like Wi-Fi calling. Like if you have Wi-Fi inside your phone, you can probably make a call through that Wi-Fi network and so on. So such kind of combinations are still possible. Now, when the 4th generation was introduced in 2010, they opted for a data rate of 1 Gbps, and in high mobility scenario, they said that it will be 100 Mbps. So it's like if you are sitting idle, then probably you should be able to get up to 1 Gbps. So obviously, in reality, we are getting much lower, but even a data rate of several Mbps when you are in a train or in a bus, that's quite good. And then they have also got this all IP network. Well, IP version, this Internet Protocol version 4 was being used for earlier networks. They have been changed to IP version 6, and they have already got WebDM. They were also getting something new technology called MIMO. MIMO is something like multiple antennas at the transmitter and at the receiver. So nowadays you will probably see a router which has more than one antennas, like 3-4 antennas are very common. So those technologies are standardized with the 4G. And the 4G has actually something like an advanced version, LTE, which is called Release 10. So this is probably somehow standardized as 4G. But if you ask that what is the scenario of 4G in India, I should say that it is very, very heterogeneous. Like 2-3 years back, when I checked the network in Durgapur, it was mostly 3.5G or 3.75G at best, although they were declaring heavily that 4G is already here. So they were not interested in putting LTE Release 10 in Durgapur. And then obviously, if they're not putting it here, then think about the rural areas that surround Durgapur. So in the metro cities where the demand is more, where the people are ready to pay more for a network, they are applying the 4G, but in semi-urban areas, they are not probably interested in implementing 4G yet. So what about 5G? Well, I still don't know. Like in 2020, they were introduced in a global scale, but this pandemic hit and everything, and globally the introduction of 5G is not very fast. So obviously, I will be talking more about 5G in our next class. We'll dedicate a whole class on that, because in your work, when you will join any company, probably that will deal with one of the 5G technologies at one level. Like it doesn't matter whether you are a civil engineer or a metallurgical engineer or a chemical engineer, but at some point of time, you need some wireless communication between devices, between sensors, between other things, and probably you need to deal with 5G technology. So probably knowing basic terms about 5G will help. Okay, so what is something like 5G in short? Well, 5G in short is like we are going to have real Gbps data rate at any time. So you can probably see high definition TVs, you can probably play high resolution games, and people are thinking about on a different note, like can we have an hologramic presence? What I mean is, like if I'm talking like this, so it is probably quite boring that you just see me on a flat screen, or rather probably a friend is talking to you. So it would be probably a better way that if you could reconstruct a 3D image or 3D, I should say 3D virtual model with the help of some hologram. and those hologram kind of things are already there, but they require a huge amount of data rate. But that is probably possible with 5G, and many other such things. So it is like a complete telepresence. Like although I'm not here, I can be almost present in some other place with the help of 5G. So that they're thinking about those kind of applications. We still have time, like we still have time till 2030 to develop 5G. So 5G will soon develop into better things, and whichever could be developed will be in the 5G, whichever not probably will be shifted to 6G. That happened with 4G as well. Like 4G came out with a lot of promise. Some promises were kept, some were not, which we're trying to fulfill in 5G. And then this will go on like this. So the 5G, well, the ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, which I said that it is part of UN, they also came up with a vision IMT 2020, and that tried to standardize the 5G. But ITU is not actually guiding everything. They are just giving a vision, and they are trying to like negotiate. What actually happens, or the action that happens, is in WRC. So what is WRC? Well, we have Olympics, we have World Cups, and we have WRC in wireless domain. Like that's held after every 4 years. There is a conference for a week or 2 weeks, and the parties from different countries come and they start fighting for getting their standard accepted. So it's like a very big fight, and with political, economical, and other kind of pressures from all over the world, and everybody tries to push their standard. Earlier, the fight was not that diverse because there were only European group or US groups, and then later on China joined. Then Korea came. So now, because Korea has been backed up by Samsung, China is very much backed up by Huawei, ZTE, and Oppo, and this Redmi, and so on. So they have a lot of muscle power, financial muscle power behind them. India was always a backseater in these cases. Like we had only telecom operators, but they were like, they didn't have much voice in such kind of things. But situation started changing, and from WRC 2019 onwards, actually, the thing got a lot of things got changed. Well, nowadays software plays a very big part in this telecom market as well, and Indian economy is fueled by such kind of software. So we have TCS to back, and some telecom operators are also turning around. Earlier they were only fighting against each other to reduce the average revenue or the call prices, but now they are turning back. And what happened in 2019 is, for the first time, the 5G Association recognized one particular part of standard for India, or India specific. It was called 5GI, 5 capital G and small I. So this 5GI was something like an extension, and I will talk more about it in the later class. What is 5GI, who did it, and what is being done on that. So that's an interesting story. But we are slowly but steadily something like making our impression in the global economy and market in the telecom sector. And we hope that in coming years, this 5G will enable many more users and will help their stream and probably ease their life. Okay, so that's all for today's class, and I stop my presentation. We will meet again on next Monday, and we will talk about 5G. And if you have any